It's no secret that these are dark times. PC prices are going insane thanks to memory supply and demand and storage as well now. When will things get better? According to AMD, it could be within 2 years. So that's a while, but at least it's not never. But who's saying this, and should we believe them? What would they know? Well, this seems to be coming from AMD's David McAfee or McAfee. I could be mispronouncing it because I read it in text, but he is AMD's Global Vice President and General Manager of the Client Channel and Graphics Business Group, which means he would be heavily invested in knowing this kind of information, but of course he's just trying to make predictions. Also, I'll note that this article here, all my sources will be linked in the video description, is from 4gamers.com.tw and is being translated by my browser into English, so there's also that translation barrier. I've also noticed that they don't seem to be giving direct quotes, but they are kind of summarizing what he said. So we can't pick out the little details of exactly how he said things, his exact wording. But why would he think that things will get better even if it takes 2 years? Well, apparently he pointed out that Samsung in South Korea and Micron in the United States are both significantly expanding their factories, and even Chongqing Memory in China is actively expanding its DDR5 production capacity. Because what threw all of this out of balance in the first place is AI data center build out, buying up all this supply, and then production lines within factories can be shifted over to like the high band HBM memory that is used in the AI data center stuff. But it is also the case that there is some build out of DDR5 production, and as that eventually comes online, it can help balance out the supply and demand situation. Now, one thing he didn't mention is the other way that things could get under control would be if there starts to be less demand on that AI data center build out. But that's, again, we have to see how much, if any, of a bubble are we actually in with all of that, and when, if ever, does that pop or just go down? Anyway, so all of that is still up in the air, but maybe things could at least get better eventually if more production is being fired up and coming online. Now, he also mentioned that, like he said, he would expect that to be about 2 years, and then talked a little bit about the AM5 motherboard platform's lifespan, talking about they're evaluating whether the AM5 socket could still support DDR6 memory and PCIe 6.0 protocols, because that could end up having to be a time where they would shift to a new motherboard, but it looks like they're exploring the ability to support that, but he didn't give any concrete answer to all of that. Now, also, from Computex, we've been getting some more information regarding the launch dates for the next GPU generations. This will be another one that I need to translate into English. So again, apologies for any errors that may cause. But this is from tweakers.net. Again, all sources in the video description. Now, Tweakers is claiming that they spoke with a bunch of board manufacturers regarding when are they expecting the next generation of graphics cards. They're saying that Tweakers spoke with several manufacturers that make AMD graphics cards on the Computex exhibition floor. They expressed their expectations regarding the introduction of the next GPU generation. One of them expects the first AMD RDNA 5 GPUs in the second or third quarter of 2027. Another board partner considers that too optimistic. They are thinking more of the end of next year or possibly even the beginning of 2028. So I'm reading a few things from this. Number one, the fact that two different board partners have different opinions here says that neither of them actually knows. This is them speculating, although they'd be in a position to make very educated guesses. It seems like them giving that wildly different of answers means it's not set in stone. Nobody knows for sure. But the fact that even the more optimistic guess is like middle or even third quarter of 2027 is saying that that's a pretty extended cycle between GPU generations, especially if it starts to go out in towards 2028. Now, That's the AMD side of things. What about Nvidia? Well, I had already reported on a leak from Megasize GPU saying that he's claiming that the 50 Super Series is back on track and that it will now have a 5060 12 gigabyte version, which may be renamed as a 5060 Super. Again, though, he's one source who has leaked things accurately in the past, but we have to take this with a grain of salt. We don't know things for sure. However, Benchlife, when commenting on this, seems to have given their own opinion. By the way, this is another article that is also being translated by my Chrome browser. So once again, there's that. But yeah, Benchlife tends to have some contacts within board partners, etc., sometimes has some of their own information. But when commenting on this tweet from Megasize GPU, they said that, where exactly is their quote? They says that while there is still no known release date for the 50 Super Series, some believe it will be released in 2026. However, in our understanding, meaning Benchlife, the GeForce RTX 50 Super Series graphics cards with the 3GB GDDR7 memory chips will be released as early as the beginning of 2027, which would be CES 2027. So, Benchlife at least, which again is another knowledgeable source, but probably doesn't have like exact official information, is thinking CES 2027. That's the beginning of next year. And the biggest thing about this is if that's when the Super Series comes out, then you would expect at least a year gap between the 50 Super Series and the 60 Series. So it could be a while before we get the 60 Series. And could that mean that AMD would be incentivized to wait? Now, I think it'd be cool if they tried to launch first, give a next generation of GPU big uplift, because the Super Series from Nvidia is just going to be having more VRAM, not really more performance from the leaks and rumors that we've seen so far. So I think it'd be cool if AMD can actually jump in, launch with something new, try to take some market share and some interest. However, I think both companies can be kind of playing chicken with this whole memory shortage situation, as talked about here, where if they're not expecting the memory pricing to be back under control for 2 years, it's possible that neither of them is that excited to launch another generation that's probably going to be priced at a point where there maybe wouldn't be a lot of interest or great reviews or anything like that. So I think that it's possible that neither company knows exactly when they want to come in with things because the pricing could be in a bad situation. Again, we just saw Lenovo hit buyers with second price hike this year, tacking on up to $147 across entire PC lineup. So yeah, prices are still going up on PCs right now. Things aren't looking good. And even the console business is starting to have some problems and talk about that next generation. So Xbox reportedly planning more mass layoffs this month as CEO Asha Sharma admits Xbox is overextended, and then is talking about the next generation of hardware because they've already talked a lot about Project Helix and how powerful it'll be and running PC games and all of that. But with memory prices what they are and SSD prices what they are, it's probably going to be very expensive. So Xbox CEO talking about potential of a cheaper next-gen console hardware, admitting that it's hard to imagine players affording $1,000 plus consoles. So, she's in a position where she's coming in with consoles having, really long lead time on you needing to plan this out, work with like AMD on the chipset and design and all of that. So, she's kind of limited in what can be done quickly, but it sounds like she's very much thinking along the lines of something cheaper needing to exist. Now, I think that Project Helix is certainly still going to happen. I think if they cut any plans, it would maybe be on like its total memory capacity or something like that, because that's a big place where prices would skyrocket. But I think it's possible that they could look at some sort of cheaper cut down design or something like that, which was already done in the previous generation, our current generation with the Series X and the Series S having that cut down version. Maybe there could be a further cut down version here or something else. But she also mentions talking about like other business models being needed. So here's some direct quotes. On hardware, we are in a crisis right now, Sharma said. The entire industry is. The costs are exponential. They are usually at this point in the generation about 50% of the launch cost, and we're seeing they're up 2.75 times. So yes, pricing is a lever, of course, but we must think about other options as well. We'll continue to look at new business models. I think that is what is needed for console, rather than just the most premium, high-performance console in the world. We've reached a point where it will be hard to imagine, maybe she means imagine, that mass audiences can afford thousands of dollars to spend on a console generation. And so I think we will start to see radically different business models that we never expected to come into orbit later this year. Later this year, radical new business models that we never expected come into orbit later this year. So I'm curious what that business model would be. She didn't seem to say. There's everybody scared of, loss of actually owning hardware, moving everything to a subscription model and things like that. I think that there's always going to be people who want to actually own their hardware and play it. And I think that, somebody has to provide that option to people. But it's interesting to see what they might be thinking. Because, at this point in the generation, consoles usually cost 50% of what they did at launch. And now we're at up to 2.75 times the price. That's kind of insane. Now, another big change that she talked about is bringing back Xbox console exclusives. Now, that had some PC players a little bit worried because if you read that really strictly, console exclusives could mean no PC version, which would be a major change to the situation regarding PC with Xbox. But we do have confirmation that these Xbox exclusives will still show up on all the normal places where we sell the PC version. That clarification coming from Xbox's Matt Booty, and I'll link the PCGamer.com article again in the video description. So that's at least good news. Now we still have Sony seeming to back away from their PlayStation exclusives coming to PC now, and there's a lot of speculation that that could be because the new Xbox could play PC games, and if that's the case, they don't want their PlayStation games being playable on the competing Xbox console. So things getting kind of messy with all of this, but it does look like we will at least be getting the Xbox exclusives on the PC platform. Now, also talking about these upcoming exclusives, there's some discussion over whether this had been planned for a while or whether this is a last-minute switch. For example, was Gears of War E-Day going to be a PS5 game up until it was very recently switched? And there is some evidence saying that that is the case. Although Xbox marketing VP says that that switch was not a last-minute decision. There's some evidence, for example, of like I think it was a podcast episode going up with the PS5 logo on it when referring to Gears of War E-Day. However, that is, for example, there's a PS5 logo here on Gears of War E-Day right there for PS5. So interesting if they're trying to claim that this wasn't a last-minute swap. Now, another game that's kind of in the Xbox wheelhouse does still look to be getting a PlayStation 5 release, and this is Senua, launching in 2027 on Xbox and PC, Steam included, as well as PlayStation 5. Now, I'm somewhat interested in this because for one thing, they're not calling this Hellblade 3. So we've had Hellblade 1 and Hellblade 2, and both of them just phenomenal graphically, but maybe from a gameplay standpoint, not as super interesting or involved. So Senua is not being called Hellblade 3, and it looks like that's signaling a change to gameplay to have a much more even split between combat, traversal, and puzzle solving, and could be more of an action game. I don't know. So if the gameplay kind of steps it up a little bit, but if they manage to keep the kind of, production values and graphics that we've seen in previous games, could be a pretty cool showcase. And like I said, I'd like the gameplay to kind of step it up a little bit, so that could be interesting. It looks like Ninja Theory has moved its full 85-person team to the Senua project, which the studio says is the first time it has focused the whole team on one project in more than 12 years. So could be a kind of a bigger scope on that. Now, in some other news, we've seen that Nvidia Broadcast 2.2 has seen its full release, and that brings Studio Voice to RTX 3060 and higher desktop GPUs. It's out of beta now. And 3D Mark of famous, benchmarking fame has added a native Windows on ARM support for their Speedway and Port Royal benchmarks. Now, this could be as part of the push of NVIDIA launching their RTX Spark, which is on an ARM-based platform. Could be interesting to see how gaming works on that, and if that triggers more support for Windows on ARM in a gaming standpoint and all of that. Well, at least 3D Mark is seeming to get their tests up and running there. And also from 3D Mark, we are seeing that path tracing test is incoming. There's a computer-based article here talking about a new path tracing test coming from 3D Mark in the future. Looks kind of interesting. Looks like Thermal Grizzly has sponsored it. Anyway, I think that's what I've got for you guys today with the PC hardware news. Let me know what you think about all of this in the comment section, and I hope all of you have an excellent day.